From our very first tantrum as a toddler to navigating tricky social situations as an adult, we're all on this lifelong journey of emotional growth. It's just a fundamental part of being human. But have you ever really stopped to think about how it all works? Let's actually map out the key stages of that incredible journey.
At the very heart of it all is this one big question. How do we go from being completely ruled by our feelings to, actually managing them? We're going to break down the building blocks of that whole process, starting with the very first lessons of childhood and going all the way up to the complex balancing act of adult life.
And the destination of this journey, really the ultimate skill we're all trying to get better at, is empathy. You can think of it as our North Star. It's like a superpower that lets us build connections, navigate our social worlds, and just move through life with a bit more understanding and kindness.
So where does a journey like this even begin? Well, the foundation for absolutely everything else is learning to manage our own minds. Before we can even begin to understand anyone else, we've got to start by understanding ourselves. I love how simple this is. Managing your mind, it's not some mystical, complicated art. It's really just a two-step process. First, get to know how your mind works. And second, actively work to make it better. That's it. That's the fundamental loop of emotional growth right there. Okay, so the very first building block in managing our mind is learning a language for what's actually troubling us. It all starts with being able to define what a problem even is. This is one of the first abstract hurdles we face as kids, isn't it? It's the absolute starting line for emotional intelligence. Because think about it. How can you possibly solve a problem if you can't even name it in the first place? And the definition we all learn is actually pretty empowering. A problem isn't some huge catastrophe, it's just something that needs to be figured out or fixed. That little shift in perspective is so important. It turns that feeling of being totally overwhelmed into a challenge you can actually tackle. We all start with problems just like these, right? Feeling lonely, losing your favorite jumper, upsetting a friend. They might seem small to us now, but for a kid, they feel monumental. These moments are basically the emotional training grounds where we first start to build the resilience we need for life's inevitable bumps in the road. And this right here is the fundamental lesson. The solution isn't to just bottle things up and pretend they aren't happening. The key, the thing we're taught from the very beginning, is communication. Just talking about a problem stops it from growing bigger in the dark. It gets the issue out into the open, and that's when you can get help and maybe a fresh perspective. Okay, so once we can identify our own problems, the next big stage begins, and that's looking outward. We start to realize that our problems, well, they're often connected to everyone else's. And yeah, this is where things start to get a little complicated, isn't it? These scenarios show that shift perfectly. Who you sit next to on the bus, that impacts someone else's feelings. Deciding not to clean your room, well, that creates a problem for your family. This is that light bulb moment when we learn our decisions create ripples. So, this growing social awareness means we can't just react emotionally all the time. We need some tools in our toolbox. And this leads right into the next stage, developing a framework for making thoughtful choices all on our own. This is basically the first instruction manual we get from making a conscious decision. It's a huge shift away from just acting on impulse. You don't just do something, you stop, you list your options, you ask for advice, you weigh the consequences, and you check in with your moral compass. That's a massive leap in emotional maturity. But how do you even know what the best outcome is? Well, this gives us a fantastic checklist. It's not just about what feels good right this second. It's a balance of three really important things. Is everyone safe? Are people as happy as they can be? And does it set you up for good things in the future? Okay, let's see this whole framework in action. Harpreet's dilemma is a classic social tightrope walk. If we run her options through that best outcome filter, you can see why option number 3 is the strongest. It's really the only one that actively tries to make everyone happy, instead of just trying to manage the fallout or avoid the problem altogether. All right, now we're entering the final and maybe the most complex stage of all. We've learned to think about other people, but what happens when their needs are in direct conflict with our own? This is where we have to find that nuanced balance. This quote right here, this is the central tension of emotional maturity. It's that one little word, but, that changes absolutely everything. Yes, be empathetic. Yes, consider others. But, and it's a huge but, not at the cost of your own safety and mental health. This is where empathy has to meet self-preservation. And I love this side-by-side comparison because it makes the distinction so incredibly clear. In low-stakes, everyday situations, yeah, the default should be to be pro-social. Share, help out, be considerate. But when the stakes are high, when your safety or your emotional well-being is on the line, the priority has to shift. You have to put yourself first. So, this is it. This is the master checklist. It brings together everything we've just talked about. You stop and think, you run your options through that best outcome guide for others, and then, this is the crucial part, you add that final check-in with yourself. Step 3 is the safety valve. It's what protects you and makes sure that in your quest to be a good, empathetic person, you don't completely erase your own needs. And this quote just wraps up our entire journey so beautifully. It brings us full circle, right back to that idea of managing the mind. See, true emotional control isn't about ignoring your feelings. It's about making choices that are both considerate of others and protective of yourself. That's the real goal.
Which leaves us with one final, really important question to think about. Now that we understand the roadmap of this journey, how do we actually walk the path? How can we each practice and strengthen this incredible skill of empathy every single day? It's definitely something worth thinking about.